Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 10th Annual Black Women's Roundtable, Women of Power Virtual National Summit. We will be starting momentarily. We just wanted to take a moment to greet all of you and thank you for your time and your attention and your participation on today. Again, we will be starting momentarily. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the 10th Annual Black Women's Roundtable, Women of Power Virtual National Summit, where we're rebuilding hope, justice, equity, and equality. It is our pleasure and our honor to now introduce for today the Vice President of Operations and Events Management from the NCBCP. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now receive Tanya Tyson.
Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to day two. It is my great privilege and honor to welcome all of you fierce and fabulous women to the 10th annual Women of Power Night Virtue Summit. I still can't believe it's been 10 years since we had our first summit. But before we bring on all these phenomenal star leaders who will be speaking today, I wanted to first let you all know about our official gift box. For those of you who have registered, should have already received your boxes, and those who have registered and have not received their boxes yet will be receiving them in the mail soon. Ladies, when I tell you there's a lot of goodies in these boxes and you will not be disappointed. So at this moment, I would like to bring on Acacia so she can show you our official summit t-shirt that we will be wearing on Saturday. Acacia.
Hi, everyone. This is the official summit t-shirt. Everyone, and we're asking everyone to wear them on Saturday. It's all about you, healthy, wealthy, wise, and Global Empowerment Day. So I hope everyone has a great summit day today.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege and our honor to now introduce our president and CEO for today's Public Policy Congressional Virtual Briefing and National Black Women Policy Champions Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now receive our president and CEO at this time, Melanie L. Campbell, as she comes.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, ladies, and a few gentlemen out there. We are so excited, and thank you. And we hope that day one was as exciting and for us as it hopefully for you. But we have a really tight lineup today. This is day two, which is our public policy and action day. We would normally be on Capitol Hill. So what we did today is we took Capitol Hill to us in two ways. This morning, for those, we have delegations of our Black Women's Roundtable state leaders and networks in several states who actually set up virtual visits with their Congress members, both House and Senate, Democrat, Republican, as many as they could meet with this morning. Yesterday, as you well know, we released our 2021 Black Women's Roundtable policy agenda. That if you don't have, you will receive that, so you will know what Black Women's Roundtable's national policy priorities are and some of the things that we are educating our elected officials of the importance, as we are a 501c3 organization. But we have two things happening today in this session, which is from 12 to 1:30. And this is our public policy congressional virtual briefing with several of our congressional leaders on Capitol Hill. And then also we will be intermixing between a actual roundtable with Black women leaders who either lead are Black women-led organizations, or the leaders within progressive institutions that support Black women-led organizations, national and state and regional organizations. And so I believe at this time, I'm correct, is Congress, our first Congress member. We will hear a message from Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House, U.S. House of Representatives. And following her, I think our first Congresswoman's office, and you all correct me in the background, will be from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. But if we could first cue up the message from Speaker of the House, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi from the great state of California.
Hello. It is an honor to send virtual greetings during Women's History Month to the brilliant Melanie Campbell and all the women leaders and advocates of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and the Black Women's Roundtable. For a decade, your annual Women of Power Summit has been advancing the promise of equal rights and opportunity, empowering young women leaders and advocating for Black women in the workplace, in government, and throughout our nation. In Congress, the record-breaking diversity of our caucus is strengthened by the dazzling leadership of 25 Black women, including committee chairs Maxine Waters and Eddie Bernice Johnson, co-chair of the Policy and Steering Committee Barbara Lee, CBC Chair Joyce Beatty, and Democratic Women's Caucus co-chair Brenda Lawrence. We are also proud of our colleague, a powerful voice for justice and progress, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge. This year, we mark Women's History Month as the pandemic and economic crisis continue to devastate our nation. Sadly, our most vulnerable communities, especially women and communities of color, are bearing the brunt of these twin crises. Over the past year, employment for Black women has dropped by nearly 10%, the worst of any racial or gender group. More than 500,000 Black women have left the workforce, forced to decide between providing for their families and caring for their children or loved one at home. To combat the virus and end these injustices, Congress joined President Biden and Vice President Harris to pass and sign into law the bold American Rescue Plan, and now help is here. This transformative plan puts vaccines in people's arms, money in their pockets, children safely back in school, and workers back into jobs, and does so while cutting child poverty in half, creating millions of jobs, and addressing disparities in access to quality, affordable health care. This historic legislation would not have been possible without the persistent, dissatisfied voices of Black women, particularly in Georgia, with Stacey Abrams, Nikema Williams, and Lucy McBath, who were instrumental in delivering a unified democratic government. Last year, you got to work electing leaders committed to advancing progress. Yet shamefully, states across the country are now working to turn back the clock on progress by enacting racist barriers to the vote. That is why House Democrats passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act, the most significant voting rights and democracy reform in more than a half a century. And we will advance the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to protect the sacred right to be heard at the ballot box. The ongoing leadership of brave women like you across the country remains essential as we deliver results and pursue justice, including economic justice, justice in health, racial justice, and environmental justice. On behalf of the United States Congress, it is my honor to acknowledge again Melanie Campbell and to thank you all for your bold advocacy and committed partnership in this mission.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi, and for giving us that message. And we appreciate your leadership, your bold leadership in moving an agenda forward for the American people and for us, most especially Black women, our families and communities. Next, we have a message from U.S. Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. And so, guys, if you could cue that up. Thank you.
Hello, women of power. It's an honor to join you for the 10th anniversary of Black Women's Roundtable. During Women's History Month, we should all celebrate the achievements of strong and inspiring women. The strongest woman I know, of course, is my mama. She raised me as a single parent, with me and my brother not necessarily being the best kids, but she raised us right. She was a nurse's assistant. She worked long hours to make our ends meet. While I was failing out of school as a freshman in high school, she was the one that encouraged me to keep moving forward. She taught me to always dream, dream, dream. And because of her prayers, her love, and her example of hard work, I stand before you today as a United States Senator. I'm also blessed to be able to talk about Anna DaCosta Banks from my great state of South Carolina. During a time of segregation, Nurse Banks spent her life fighting for more equitable health care for the Black community and quality training for Black nurses. She, among many of her accomplishments, is a person that we can look forward to because she helped all of South Carolina, but specifically African Americans, have more high quality health care in every community. We are a state filled with amazing African American women. Perhaps one of the most famous ones is Mary McLeod Bethune. She emerged as the nation's premier African American educator. She was a civil and a human rights leader, a champion for women and for young people, and an advisor to not one, not two, not even three or four, but 5 United States presidents. Wow. The list of her accomplishments go on and on and on. She was a leader that led leaders. God bless you. I'm so happy to be a part of this opportunity, and I hope that you all have an amazing event. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Scott, for those words, and we appreciate you and all you do for the people of South Carolina and the nation. Next, we have a message from a brand new U.S. Senator from the great state of Georgia, and that is Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia, new U.S. Senator, just elected in January.
Thank you so much. What an honor it is to participate in the 10th Annual Women of Power National Summit and Action Day right here on Capitol Hill. This year it is virtual. We are online, but we are one in the spirit. I want to thank Melanie Campbell for inviting me to today's virtual lunch briefing, along with leaders in my home state of Georgia, Helen Butler, Felicia Davis, and Deborah Scott. These three women are always carrying the legacy of folks like John Lewis, Dr. Joseph Lowry, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, so many others. They are no strangers to making good trouble, helping to change the trajectory of our state last November and January. And so while I regret that we're not able to be together in person, it was very important to me to join you this Women's History Month as we all reflect on your timely theme of rebuilding hope, justice, equity, and equality. Because see, I know personally that women, and Black women in particular, have always been at the forefront of our struggle and our fight for justice making and truth telling in the world. And that as much as we exalt folks like John Lewis, who was my parishioner, we also need to lift up names like Amelia Boynton, who was gassed on the Edmund Pettus Bridge fighting for our right to vote. We need to lift up the names of women like my other church member, Zernona Clayton, the great Dorothy Height, Coretta Scott King, so many others who paved the path of progress through their lifetimes. And then in more recent times, it was women like Stacey Abrams and Nse Ufat and so many others who paved the way and changed the landscape of what people thought was possible in the Deep South and in the state of Georgia. And now I sit as the first Black person to represent Georgia in the United States Senate. And that's why as a voice in the United States Senate, I know that there I have to champion the issues that are important to women and make sure that their voices, as they were heard at the ballot box, are heard in the public policy that we will create. And so this is a moment of celebration. We really should take the moment to thank those who have worked so hard, to congratulate ourselves on all that we have achieved, but we have to achieve so much more. And so I'll be working every day as we have pushed forward robust COVID relief through a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, the likes of which we have not seen in a very long time. We have to continue to fight for federal investments to end maternal mortality. We know that maternal mortality and infant mortality are serious problems in our nation, particularly in Georgia. And we know that Black women are 3 or 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts. This is the work that we have to address, and it is an issue that I will be addressing through legislation later this week as I introduce a bill along with my brother in the Senate, Senator Cory Booker. We have to fight to expand and protect access to the ballot box. Let's be clear, voting rights are preservative of all other rights. This is not just one issue alongside other issues. It is foundational. Sisters, somebody has seen your voice. They have seen your power, and they're trying to make it difficult for you to exercise your constitutional right to vote. Know that I will fight every single day in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, who challenged in those days the Democratic Party at the convention when she said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And here we are in 2021, still fighting for our voting rights. It is frustrating. It is outrageous, but we cannot grow weary in well-doing. We cannot allow them to wear us down. We have to continue to stand up for our constitutional right to vote. And when we fight for the franchise, when we fight for the right to vote, we know that we're fighting for health care. We're fighting for criminal justice reform. We're fighting for access to a good quality education for every child. It matters. Our vote is our voice is our human dignity. It matters because representation informs the kind of public policy we create in the end. And so in closing, know that while we've all been forced into this virtual space, I'm very much with you in spirit, and you'll always have a partner in me. And know that I'll continue to look to your leadership as we continue working to rebuild hope, justice, equity, and equality in our country in service of what Dr. King called the beloved community. Thanks again to the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and the Black Women's Roundtable for having me. I'm deeply honored, and thank you for convening this critical space at this very important time. God bless you. Keep the faith and keep looking up.
Thank you, Senator Warnock. You may be from Georgia, but you represent all of us across this nation, along with many of your other colleagues. So we thank you so very much for those moving words. And just so you know, I'm an old Ebenezer member myself before I came to Georgia. So I'm I'm part of that church as well as my church here at a Community of Hope AME under my pastor, Reverend Tony Lee. At this time, we're going to move, I believe, to our panel, and I believe I'm going to introduce everyone as your moderator, and it is my honor. So our first roundtable panelist is Dr. Janetta B. Cole, Chair and President of the National Council of Negro Women. And Dr. Cole, you can turn your camera on.
Start my video.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cole. And next we will have Carol Joyner, Director, Labor Project for Working Families, Family Values at Work. Thank you, Carol, for joining us today. Following Carol is Marcia Johnson Blanco, Co-Director, Voting Rights Project, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Patrice Lawrence, I don't think Patrice is here yet. She's running behind. We'll come back to her. But Joy Owens, Program Lead, Gulf Coast U.S. Domestic Programs with Oxfam America. And our sister Barbara Perkins, co-founder and president of the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. Ladies, as Dr. Cole says, ladies all. It is good to see you. I can't believe I'm gonna give you a virtual hug because we'd be together hugging up. And so it is good to see you and be able to hear from you. I will say just a little housekeeping on at some point when the Congress people, as they can come in, we'll pause, let them bring their remarks, because we are expecting a couple of them to come live today. But we know it's a lot going on up there in Capitol Hill. So we're going to get right started with our first question. And that first question, and let me just set the context too, let me just back up. And I'm also going to say, we said this yesterday, working in these boxes is really interesting because right now I figured if I go to my office, I have silence. But right over here to my left, they're washing, and this is a good thing, right? They're out there washing my windows. So preferably it won't come across, and preferably they will be safe out there. And I'm like, what's that out there? They're washing the windows. So and so we want them to be careful, that we know that's some serious work. But this conversation was really wanted to just really, sisters, just lift up your work, lift up your leadership. So it's not so scripted, and we want to do with the Black Women's Roundtable, because we just a sisterhood. This is what we call ourselves, right? And we are represented, but we wanted to lift up. There's a lot, but there's some of us that we work really close on from national level, and just wanted to, first of all, just say thank you for what you already do, right? So, but I wanted to have a conversation from that lens, and then just have and share a little bit about what you're doing, whichever way it is, whether you're working with girls or women, you're always pouring in each and every day, whether that's a formal way or informal way. So my first question to everyone is, let me get to. So Black women are leading the way in the fight for racial, economic, health, and social justice for Black women, our families, nation, and globally. So the BWR is so excited to have you join us today as one of our key national partners, and wanted to highlight, as I said, your work to counting 1,100 plus registered. Then this is the good thing about being online, right?
Yes, it is.
Some people, right? You don't have to, and so it's something. There's always some light even in the darkness, that people are able to find a way to gather, where we had to pay them airline tickets and all them hotel rooms and all that. But so there's something to be said that we don't need to go to the old normal. We got to flip and mix it up a little bit in 2022. Preferably this COVID thing will be under control. We can be in the same room, and those who can't be can be there virtually. I think we something about that that I see. So my first question. Okay. So one of your priorities. Tell us about your priorities for your organization. I'll start with you, Dr. Cole. Like, what are you? We know the National Council of Negro Women. I was under the tutelage, Dr. Haight, and before Dr. Haight, I was under your tutelage, quite frankly, in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've never forgotten that when you was the president of Spelman College, and I was working for late Maynard Jackson and others, and so it was always good to see you and be in your presence. And you will forever be my mentor, whatever role you play. So I would like to find out from NCNW. Tell us what's going on with NCNW. Y'all got a lot going on doing the COVID thing and all of that. Tell us what's happening there. And then I'll move over to Carol next, and then I'm just going by what I see on the screen, ladies. And then I'll just come right that way. We'll mix it up. It don't have to be A to Z. So Dr. Cole.
Sister Leader, my Melanie, before I can answer or respond to your question, I have to do what on the African continent is called a praise song. And it really is a praise song for you, for your exceptional, effective, and soulful leadership. When we talk about mentorship, we act as if it's a one-way street. And it's usually described as this old person who's supposed to be so wise, providing advice and counsel to the young'un. True mentorship involves reciprocity. It means that the mentor learns as much as she teaches. That wonderful African proverb captures it. She who teaches must learn, and she who learns must teach. And so I want to publicly say what I hope and pray you know, and that is that my respect, my admiration, my love for you as a leader is deeper than you can imagine. Now, you've asked what's happening, what's going on, as Marvin would say, at NCNW. I want to be concise because look at these other sisters on this call, in this convening. And each of us could talk for days about what's going on. Let me try to be concise. NCNW, if it does nothing else, must remain inspired by our legendary leader, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and our iconic sister leader, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. We just we just celebrated our 85th anniversary. That day when Mary McLeod Bethune said, there's a need for a Black women's organization of organizations. And of course, last night, we celebrated the birthday of the visionary Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. So remaining inspired, we don't say that enough. I love what Brother Rev just said about all these women leaders. We need to keep them close because they inspire us to carry on their work. NCNW has 4 foci, and we're sticking to them. The first one of the 4 is education. I mean, I don't have to make that case. We know that when you educate a man, you educate a man. When you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Our second foci has to do with health. If we, as Black women, don't take care of these creations of God, then who will? And our particular concern is health disparities. Where I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, the folk would say when white folk got a cold, Black folk got walking pneumonia. I want to add something. And Black women are in the intensive care unit. If nothing else, the COVID-19 pandemic has put a spotlight on disparities in our health. The third, so we got education, we've got health, and then we look to our economic well-being, focusing, of course, on entrepreneurship. We Black women, we almost come into the world knowing we've got to be entrepreneurial. Because like Dr. Height said, Black women don't often get to do what they want to do, but they have to keep doing what they have to do. And the fourth and final foci, and I'll leave it at that, Mel, has to do with public policy and civic engagement. And it's there that we feel so fortunate to be in cahoots with both of the organizations for which you provide sterling leadership. So my sisters, I took more time than I should have, but I'm sure gonna wait and listen as Mel calls on each of you.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. And now we have our Congresswoman. I'll come to Carol right after. We have Congresswoman Joyce Beatty from the wonderful state of Ohio, who is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, has joined us. Congresswoman, thank you so very much. And we turn the floor over to you. We know you all over there getting it done in there for us. And so we appreciate you stopping in, dropping in to the Black Women's Power Table today. And I meant to say that earlier, our virtual power table to let us know what we need to know and what we need to be doing. And Congresswoman, we had our virtual Hill Day today. So all of our delegations from your state and others actually did virtual visits as much as they could with availability today to talk about our Black Women's Policy agenda that's very much influenced by the CBC's agenda.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you, my sister, for all that you do and for leading this today, and to everyone who's on here, all of the presenters that preceded me and will come afterwards. Thank you for doing this and allowing us to come in our own way. And I think that's so important. For the time you have allotted me, I want to make sure that I try to hit on all of the points as the chair of the powerful Congressional Black Caucus. First, let me say, I don't take that lightly. And I thank all of my members who elected me for this Congress, the 117th, to be the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And certainly, if I could set the stage for you, if I could tell you as we look at the issues, we know that we stand on our 13 founders, just as your theme for today talks about rebuilding hope, talks about justice, equity, and equality. Well, 50 years ago, this is our 50th anniversary, 13 members and one bad sister, Shirley Chisholm, decided that they would make a stance and they would come together because they had been rejected to do something they wanted to do. And so they formed the Congressional Black Caucus. There's so many things that we know Shirley Chisholm as and for. But today, it reminds me that she so aptly said, you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. So today, let me take the words ideas and turn it into policy and turn it in speaking truth to power and soliciting your help. So if we look at our briefing on the Congressional Black Caucus, I would say that we have to start with COVID-19 and the pandemic, because certainly we know 530,000 people died. Why is that relevant to us today as Black women? It's relevant because we make up 13% as Black Americans of the nation's population. But we were contracting the coronavirus at 18%, and at one time we were dying at 15 to 16%. I don't need to tell you about how disproportionately we are affected or the disparities that we have in healthcare. So hold on that point. And then the three-headed pandemic goes next to the economy. We know that for Black and female-owned businesses, we have been devastated. 41% of Black businesses closed because of the pandemic. And we were already in the hole before we started. And then we have the social justice issues. And you can pick one, whether that is environmental justice, housing justice, whether that is criminal justice. Those are the things that we have to face with. Now, what is it that we're doing in Congress about it as Black women? Well, let me just tell you, we have the largest, most historic diversity that we have had in our 50 years as the Congressional Black Caucus. And I'm going to just tell you, we have some bad sisters, and I am so proud to brag on them. So let's take COVID-19. We have 4 nurses in the United States Congress that belong to the Congressional Black Caucus. And so when we talk about legislation and the dollars, $1.9 trillion was passed, and it could not happen but for the Congressional Black Caucus. So when I think of your agenda today and I think about how do we talk to Black women and girls, Three bad sisters have been fighting and creating opportunities for Black women and girls across the spectrum. You're going to hear from one of them, my colleague and friend, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, Yvette Clarke, and Robin Kelly. And then when we talk about criminal justice, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, Congresswoman Karen Bass, a member of the Judiciary Committee, carried that legislation in the 116th, and I have asked her to continue it, and she is doing an amazing job. It passed the House, and we are going to get it through the Senate with your help. And then when we think about the economy, Congresswoman Maxine Waters chairs the powerful Financial Services Committee. When we look at what happened in the last stimulus packet, billions of dollars for small businesses, it would not have happened but for the Black Caucus and members standing up and talking about our barbershops and our beauty salons and our gig workers and our 1099 workers. Because why? We were left out in the first round and the second round so often as we are. And then when we think about science and technology and how we get to the vaccination, Eddie Bernice Johnson, a Black woman, chair of science and technology, Congressional Black Caucus. As a matter of fact, we hold 6 members of the Congressional Black Caucus in leadership positions as chairing major committees. But when we talk about setting policy within the Congress, there's Congresswoman Barbara Lee, another member of the Congressional Black Caucus. But for her, we wouldn't be in the position we are to serve on these committees, because as Shirley Chisholm would tell us, if you're not in the room, if you don't have a seat at the table, take your folding chair. Well, Barbara Lee brought the folding chairs for us. On my cabinet, 3 strong Black women, Second Vice President, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who speaks truth to power about women every day as one of her top priorities. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. When we talk about criminal justice reform, when we talk about reparations, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is in the forefront. And then there's Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. She recently passed legislation that creates a 19-member coalition to look at the social impact on Black men and boys. And we have powerful people who will be sitting on that board to put dollars in to make a difference for us. So when you look at where we are at our very best, but we can't take it for granted. We have so much work to do because we are still in those numbers. We know we still don't have equal pay for equal work. We know that we are dying far too much because of lack of health care. But I want you to know that help is here. Having a Black woman in the White House with Vice President Kamala Harris is really making a difference. Having Ambassador Susan Rice in the White House is making a difference. And they walk the walk. Less than 100 days in the White House, and I have already been there and met with both of them. We have created a domestic policy council patterned after Susan Rice's domestic policy council. No more task force, no more meetings just to meet. We are better, bigger than that. So we are creating real policy, and we're pushing it through, like gun reform, like closing the Charleston loophole. These are things that we need you, because you are the best. When I look at so many of the things that I could say, thank you, Melanie, for your work because of what you've done. When I think about what you did in marrying the census data with voting rights, count me in being Black. You are unapologetic, and you are the coalition that is leading us through civic engagement. So with the Congressional Black Caucus, we say we are glad to be partners. And we have something that we are saying unapologetically and loud and clearly, and that is our power and our message. We were sworn in live before 30,000+ households. When we got elected, we had the inauguration, the insurrection, and impeachment, and Black women were there in the forefront every single time. When we think about Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett bringing it to us with the impeachment, when we think about the insurrection on the United States Capitol with white supremacy, I called on some of the best to be there so we could have a hearing. We have actually opened up one of our CBC meetings, 30 minutes live on social media, because we will not be hidden figures. The policies that we are bringing, we're bringing them to the nation. And that's our power. As women, we have to stop being afraid of saying how great and how powerful we are, because we know we are at the intersectionality of race and gender. I'm going to end with this. If you don't think we still have issues as Black women, think about it in this way. Person goes in and they're a female and they're Black, and they want the highest position there, and they see a Black man there in a high position. It makes us feel good because we're Black, and we say they're not discriminating against us. And then we see a woman there and she's white and we're female, and we feel good about that. Now let me put it in real language. Black man was president. Barbara Bush was a white, strong, proud white woman as the first lady. And she was able to do amazing things. But what happened when Michelle Obama walked in the room that the mean-spirited public did? They called her names out of her name. They were discriminatory about her, a Black woman. We're still fighting against the odds when you put racism and genderism together. And that's why we have to stand strong, because we are one fearful combination when we walk in as Black women, and people know it. So we're going to continue to stand up for justice. We're going to create policies that will bring real change. And to all my sisters from the great state of Ohio who are on here, I love you and thank you for your support. And to all of the sisters and the women who are on here from across this nation, I need you as part of our power, our message. But with a little less than 30 Black women serving in the United States Congress, we have your back. And we're going to be unapologetic in healthcare, in the economy, in criminal justice, environmental justice, and housing. Lastly, out of the $1.9 trillion, we were in those numbers. When we think about housing, it was our billions of dollars that was in there because of our fight to make sure that Black women aren't evicted or we aren't foreclosed on our mortgages. And let's lastly talk about our children. The dollars that were put in there to make sure that teachers and children can return to school safely had our fingerprint on it. So with that, I see Sister Campbell back on the screen. I'm not going to go over my time anymore, but I want to say thank you. Thank you for speaking truth to power, and thank you for letting us be a part of today's program.
And thank you, Congresswoman, our fearless leader. We appreciate you so much for all you all are doing. And I thank you again publicly for being able to spend that time at the inauguration, and so much that is happening. And I'm glad to see they're starting to take down some of these fences, but also we want you all to stay safe over there. And we're out here on the other side of those fences, and we can't wait till the day we can be in these spaces together, and we will continue to fight, and we know you're doing the same. And we'll be back in touch. I'll be texting you.
Let me just thank you, and let me say to all the sisters, she represented us well. And lastly, that's what we have to do. And you do it so well. We lift each other up. So when you have an opportunity, take a sister with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for those out there. Just raise your hand and wave your hand out there. And we thank our Congresswoman and all of the other Congresspersons who have joined us. And we have another Congresswoman who is here, and that is Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from the great state of New Jersey, who co-chairs the Congressional Caucus on Black women and girls. It is so good to be in the space with you, Congresswoman. I know we both are COVID survivors, right?
Yes, indeed.
Y'all got more for us to do. And so we thank you for joining us today. And so we're going to turn the floor over to you and let us know what the priorities are that you would like to share with us. We are 1,100 strong, including your great state of New Jersey. And we have 20%. Which I'm really, really pleased with. We have 20% who are Gen Z, is that what they call it? Gen Z and under. We have 13 year olds on here.
Wow.
We have a delegation. Every delegation have girls that they brought. That they have in a girls track that starts tonight. They will develop their youth agenda for called the Girl Power agenda, as well as college age and up. All the way up to seniors. We're all here together intergenerationally. So turn it over to you. And then following her, we'll go to Carol Joyner. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Melanie. First of all,
and who,
thank God.
by the way, is from New Jersey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank God for your full recovery, I pray, from COVID, because you're right, we do have more work to do. And I thank God every day that my experience was my experience and was nothing more than that, you know? I just was listening to Joyce Beatty. She's our amazing leader, man. She is on it. And I'm grateful to be under her leadership. I understand that Nancy Pelosi opened up the session for you all. So it's great to have her as a leader of the caucus right now. She's a grandmother, a mother, a woman. She understands our issues from the gender perspective as well as the intersection of race and sex. And she's an amazing, strong leader. And that's what I think we have a lot of in Congress right now. And that's what we need a lot of. And I thank you for convening the roundtable, and for all those who are here from New Jersey. Hey, glad to be with you. We have work to do in New Jersey. So Joyce kind of laid out our broad agenda. Let me talk to you a little bit about the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls. As you know, it was created along with Robin Kelly and Yvette Clark, and its purpose was to elevate issues and discussions and look for policies and legislation that addressed the gap in the consideration of the impact of policies and resource applications, et cetera, on the intersection of race and sex. And so we've done a lot of things in that space by elevating those issues, having discussions, putting out reports, and even doing inventory of legislation that is of particular interest and concern to us. In addition to what the caucus has done, we as individuals have taken on a number of priority projects. And for me, talking to you today, to the younger young ladies on here, I'm particularly concerned that you recognize that Ayanna Presley and I are co-sponsors of a push-out legislation that deals with the over-disciplining of our young ladies in schools, and that we want to make sure that they are treated with the dignity and the respect and the love and the worth that they actually intrinsically have. I also want you to know that I've introduced, or reintroduced, I should say, the Crown Act, which would prohibit discrimination based upon the creative expressiveness of our hairstyle and our hair texture in both educational settings for young people, as well as employment and other settings. I'm very concerned about our being in the space addressing the overt and consistent and persistent attempts to suppress the vote. Black women were principally responsible for the good outcomes in this last election. We have, I believe, a new administration that is all about healing and addressing the issues of systemic racism and other impediments to a good, healthy living and a pursuit of liberty and health in this country. But everywhere we look, there are pieces of legislation popping up with the express purpose of making it more difficult to access the vote, more difficult to vote, and more tedious to vote. So I've, as part of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls, I'm leading a letter to the states, alerting them that we're paying attention to this, and we're going to hold hearings on these pieces of legislation, these efforts. We're going to refer this issue on to the Department of Justice. We're going to pursue it. We're going to be dogged on it, but we need you all to be dogged on it as you look to see what's happening on your state level with your state legislatures. And they must hear our voices. And that's our Democratic friends as well as our Republican friends. And people must understand that this fundamentally is going to disrupt our ability to preserve and protect a democracy. Now, I know everybody wants to get back to some normalcy. I want to get back to some normalcy with some understanding that we've got some serious systemic racist institutions that we have to dismantle, whether it's healthcare, social justice, education, employment, equal pay, or a number of other issues. For me, my purpose in being in Congress and my purpose for being an elected official has always been to try to ensure that government stands up in the space it needs to be for those in greatest need. And so, as Joyce said, we fought very hard to make sure that the COVID relief bill represented the interests and the needs of those communities, particularly ours, whether they're entrepreneurs, family members, or employees, represented their needs and the resources were applied in those areas. We have to continue to do that. We've got to continue to push those issues that will make us healthier, stronger, and give us access to equity, not just equality, but equity. I also just want to point out that I have found out how just very important mental health issues are in our communities. Now, I started out with that emergency task force on mental health and suicide for Black youth, but I've also recognized that it is even bigger than just our youth. And it is even a bigger issue for us as a community in relating to access to resources and access to qualified, culturally competent providers, but also overcoming the stigma of mental health. And I'm glad to say that pushing through this legislative session is the second iteration of our pursuing mental health equity bill, which would push resources into those areas that have been under-researched, under-supported, and to help those who wish to be educated in those fields to be helped along the way. We have an amazing agenda. We have this agenda because we've been left with so much to do as a result of the last administration. So I thank you for having this opportunity to speak to 1,100 of us, ranging from 13 to say thank you, God bless you, stay in the fight, stay in the demonstration, let our voices be heard. We are powerful and we are important. Thank you and God bless you. Thanks for this opportunity, Melanie. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And love you. And I can't wait to be in the space and keep up the fight. And we're going to do the same. We're going to do the same.
Okay.
Thank you. Be safe. Y'all be safe over there.
Indeed.
So now we're going to, as we said, we're going to intermix our day with our Black women leaders. And so it's my pleasure to call on my sister, Carol Joyner, who happens to be a New Jerseyan. Again, I'll introduce her. And then Carol Joyner is the director of the Labor Project for Working Families with Family Values at Work. And I'm going to introduce, and I'll be calling on her a little later, but I know she joined us since we did our initial introductions, and Sister Patrice Lawrence, co-director of Undocu Black, is with us today as well. So Carol, question. So tell us what's going on over there with the family. Like, I don't know, but tell everybody else, right? It's so good to see your face and see your bright side face. Tell us what's going on over there. What's going on over there, especially paid family leave and anything else you'd like to share.
Excellent. It's so great to see you, Mel, and all of my 1,000 friends out there joining the BWR Summit. And I have to say that of all the conferences that I attend, this is by far my favorite. I love being a part of this family and this community. You all know, those of you who saw our conference last year or attended our summit where we were bumping elbows, just talking about this thing that's a pandemic coming our way. A year ago, a similar panel, similar conversation, I talked about what does it mean to be heading directly into a pandemic when we know that this country does not have any structure for paid leave. And we saw what happened. People who lacked paid leave, 80% in the private sector lacked paid leave, 60% lacked medical leave in the private sector, right? We saw what happened. They went to work sick, in essential jobs, in home care, in food service, in meat packing, in healthcare. We hugged our family members. We hugged our children. People couldn't stay home. And as a result, we just saw this nation, which is like what, 4% of the world's population, have more than 25% of the deaths around the world. And so, you know, the impact of a world that doesn't have paid leave, of a country that lacks paid leave, was laid bare as a result of the coronavirus. We quickly, you know, by the time we got to the end of March, we quickly turned around and began to figure out across our network of 27 state coalition partners and our national partners, we didn't rest. We wanted to know, how do we make sure people have access to paid leave and can protect themselves in this moment? We swiftly raised more than $500,000 across our network to support advocacy on the Hill, to make sure we could pass the bills that our eloquent members of Congress just talked about in the Family First Corona Response Act. We then developed a blueprint so that we could have a Know Your Rights structure and train people on, well, how do you get access to the Family First Corona Response Act? How do you make use of those paid sick days and the unemployment insurance? We socialize that Know Your Rights across our network and across national partners. We built a rapid response muscle that we really didn't have. We developed it across the network, training on digital, training on comms, which I think is going to be our new normal. We worked closely with the groups that we founded, like Paid Leave for All, a campaign established to pass paid leave in this country once and for all. And then we worked closely with the 12 organizations and now the 25 that are growing in that group to make sure that we eventually get paid leave. We worked with our state partners, where we already had paid leave programs in cities and states, to work with their legislatures in order to expand their coverage to cover people with COVID who had COVID or needed COVID reasons for care. We also made sure that we looked at our health emergencies and our healthcare providers to make sure that they had access to paid leave, and expanded where we could, even though many of those workers were left out of the bill. So robustly, we needed to try to influence and create a national campaigns, not just for paid leave, but also for childcare. We talked about entrepreneurship earlier on this call. Many of the entrepreneurs that are Black women are childcare providers. And we saw that their centers and their programs were being obliterated by this pandemic. And so we worked hard to get funding into these bills for childcare and for paid leave. As we look forward now to what, you know, is our future, a life without COVID, a year has passed. Our work has doubled. We know what we have to do going forward. And we are very pleased and excited about the $1.9 trillion that was just passed in the American Rescue Plan. The most important part of that to us, providing COVID relief, providing support for working families, especially possibly cutting child poverty in half with child care tax credits. But it did not have paid family and medical leave. Because of our process to try to get paid leave through reconciliation in the Senate, paid leave as we know it and need it was scrapped. And so instead, they put in voluntary tax credits. That means employers can decide whether or not they want to provide paid leave and then get the reimbursement from the federal government. So if you all are working with small employers, if you are small employers, Main Street Alliance and other groups are putting out information about how to use those voluntary tax credits. You should use them. You should tell people about them. You should tell them to tell their employers about them. But be clear, it is not comprehensive paid family and medical leave. And when we say that, we're talking about paid leave for everyone. That's mandatory, that people can't be discriminated against for using it, that has a job protection, inclusive family definition, progressive wage replacement, all the issues that address equity. Because if we don't have those issues inside of a paid leave bill, guess who's going to be left out? People who look like me, people who look like you. And so we are fighting hard for paid leave. As I close, I just want to say this very quickly, that we see two paths to paid leave. We see a path that goes down the next large recovery bill. I think it'll be called the Build Back Better Economic Recovery Plan. It could possibly be in there. And the Family Act is moving in the House. And we want to ask every single person to call their member of Congress and have them make sure they have co-sponsored the Family Act. We cannot be hurt by a pandemic in the way that we have, because we lack structural support for working families. And so never again should we be caught out there without having access to family leave, access to paid sick days, a robust childcare system, so that the least of us, the most vulnerable people, have a fighting chance against the next pandemic or the next economic crisis. I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to any questions or thoughts.
And Carol, where can people find out about, I'll do the same, I forgot to ask Dr. Cole to do that. Where can people follow Family Values and pay?
So you can go to familyvaluesatwork.org. It's all spelled out. And also we have, if you go to our Know Your Rights section in our website, we have all the information on how to get access to these benefits that have been passed in Congress. You can also go to #PaidLeaveForAll, where there's a ton of stories and communications and information about our campaign to build out paid leave for the rest of the country.
Thank you, Carol. That's paid leave for with a number 4 all.
Nope.
Right?
Paid,
nope.
paid
F-O-R? F-O-R?
F-O-R all.
Okay. Thank you.
.org.
And then, of course, please follow National. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate
you. Thank you, Mel, and thank you. I appreciate you. I love you, and
love you
more.
Looking
forward to seeing you in person.
And we're gonna get our power walk on soon.
Yes.
And Dr. Cole, make sure the National Council of Negro Women that you follow the National Council of Negro Women. I'm going to jump a bit to my sister Barbara Perkins in Atlanta, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it this way. Barbara Perkins, President, International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. Joy Owens, Program Lead, Gulf Coast U.S. Domestic Program, Oxfam America. Marcia Johnson Blanco, I'm just jumping between y'all, co-director with Lawyers Committee. And then we will close out with my sister, Patrice Lawrence with Undocu Black. So Barbara, Joy, Marcia, then Patrice.
Thank you. And I'm waiting for, okay, let's see. There we go. Hi. Thank you, Sister Melanie. This is so inspiring, as our wonderful leader, sister leader, Dr. Cole has said. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here today. It is an honor and a pleasure to be a supporter and partner with the Black Women's Roundtable for a decade now. And I too want to say, you know, I'm one of those Dr. Height babies. I was a mentee of Dr. Height for 16 years and traveled, opened my eyes. I was a flight attendant when I met her, but I traveled with her across Africa 4 different times and spent a lot of time in the international space, which is where I got the bug for being a global citizen. And 12 years ago, my co-founder and I, Ka Fluellen, we were graduate students together, and we went up on the Hill and said to Dr. Height, we want to do something to continue the international work, as NCNW had started to fall off a little bit in that space, and got her blessing. She said to us, go up on the Hill and get someone of power to support you. Now, you know, Dr. Height, she'll give you a task that seems to be a mountain you have to climb, but we certainly in that same day went up to Capitol Hill and met with retired Congresswoman Diane Watson, who said, I'll help you. And so here we are, 12 years in the making. We are a policy-focused organization, the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. We have a very simple mission, and that mission is through acts of kindness to influence and to write legislation, public policy that enhances the lives of Black women no matter where they are. Because we know that geography does not change our desires. Geography cannot keep us from each other. We want the same things. I found that out when I traveled with the coalition with NCNW to the Fourth World Conference on Women, and saw the sea of women across languages and religious beliefs and cultures who came together around a set of ideas and who continues to work on those ideas. We too, Dr. Cole, have 4 pillars that we focus on. And I was smiling from ear to ear because our first pillar is education. Our second pillar is health and wellness. Exactly the same. The third pillar, Dr. Cole, is economic security for Black women, no matter where they are. And then our fourth pillar that we are working so hard on, and we've been doing this work for about 7 years now, on the eradication of sex trafficking of our girls, women and girls. Those are the 4 areas we work in. And although we are a policy organization, we spend a lot of time on humanitarian efforts because it's about building a global coalition. That's how we're going to move this forward. So here we are 16 women on the board. We are represented in 6 countries and 11 major cities across the US. We are in Belize, Bermuda, Bahamas, South Africa, West Africa. We had a small group that we started in Cuba, and we're going to go back now that there's a new administration. We're going to go back and try to revive that work, but we are still represented on our board from our sister in Cuba. And then I want to just talk quickly about what we're doing right now. So we have these big ideas. We have schools that we've built. We have 2 board members in West Africa, South Africa, and we have 2 schools that we support because we believe education from the earliest level, but not just education from an academic standpoint, but how do we transfer our stories, our culture, our nuances? How do we bring that to bear so that not only are we teaching ourselves, but we're teaching the world about the Black woman's model of leadership, which is a model to be held. We have done, as you know, we have done things. Look at what our 2 congresswomen just talked about, the leadership that we have today. We've had that. We come from that kind of leadership. So when we join our hearts and our hands again, and we establish these unbreakable bonds where we know for a fact that we love to work with each other and that it's a lie that we don't. So we're working on dispelling that myth that Black women don't work together well. So here's what we've launched just 2 weeks ago. And it fills me up because no way 12 years ago we could have even imagined this initiative. We have launched an initiative to establish the first and only Black women's embassy.
Wow.
It doesn't exist in the world, but it exists in our minds and in our hearts. A place, can you imagine, where sisters will come from anywhere in the world here to Atlanta, where I now am. I spent 35 years in California, but I'm now in Atlanta. But here, this particular space in Atlanta at this time, within the next 2 years, to break ground on something as amazing as this. Can you imagine a place where women will come and know that there's a seat for her at the table and that she is welcome, regardless of her age, her religious background, her culture, regardless of where she lives? But there is a place for us. There, as I said, there is no place like it in the world. I don't know what it's going to be. I have no idea. And the only way, I said to my board last week, I said, the only way we will know what it's going to be is when we convene, as Melanie shows us how to convene, all the women that we can. So our goal is to convene 1,000 women from no less than 25 countries to feed into this idea so that it is ours. This is our embassy, not the IBWPPI's embassy. And so lastly, I will say, Dr. Cole, I was in the room when Dr. Haidt came in and said, we're gonna buy this building at 633 Pennsylvania Avenue. In fact, I was the assistant recording secretary on the national board and the youngest member on the board. I'm gonna tell you right now, I thought she was a little crazy. I said, how are we going to buy a building for $11 million when at that particular time we were struggling to do some other things financially? But there was a dream in the room that was bigger than any of us can imagine. And what I say today, this dream that we're talking about now will not be deferred. This dream exists, and it only exists with the help of my sister partners. I thank you, Melanie, for this opportunity, and I look forward to any questions as we go forward.
Thank you, Barbara, Sister Barbara Perkins. We're gonna need to pivot. So we're gonna be moving and grooving, right? So we now have, we're going to Texas, Dr. Cole, and we have our Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and we will go a little longer than the schedule. We got a little room in there, ladies. If you can hang with us, we'll go till about 1:45, so that way everybody still gets a chance to discuss. And
Melanie, sorry to interrupt. Can you check your chat, please?
Check my chat. She is not ready now. Okay, so we'll pivot on back over here to the Black Women Leaders conversation, and she'll get, they over there working. So we know we said we're going to be flexible. So Joy, turn it over to you.
And I am happy to defer when she is ready to come in. If I just need to stop talking, let me know and I will be silenced. Again, thank you for having me. My name is Joy Owens, and currently I serve as the Gulf Coast Program Lead for Oxfam America. Oxfam America is a global organization whose mission is to end injustice and poverty. And when I introduce myself, I often like to say I'm a proud mother. I'm a Mississippian, a lawyer, an organizer, and an advocate. And I always like to say my title is beyond that job title, because 2020, if nothing else, gave us all examples that representation matters, having lived experiences matter, and collectively as a group, we matter. And to Melanie, thank you for your service, your commitment, your vision, long before the world saw it, and for giving us this safe space to show up, to feel seen, and to do the work that matters. Your work and your voice have had such a profound impact on me personally and professionally. So thank you for creating this space that honors our power as a collective. And also thank you to the Black Women's Roundtable. We've seen Black women's voices centered in conversations on policy regarding access to healthcare, race, and gender. And I think the world too saw that, Black women are so integral to our families, to the well-being of our economy, the workplace, and to create a thriving economy. So we are so thankful for this day and this space that honors our value. Our voice empowers us and continues to push us to do this work. And now I'll talk about a little bit about Oxfam America. We have a program, it's called Good Jobs Mississippi. And what that program does is it examines economic justice at the intersection of race and gender, intending to create jobs, including social entrepreneurship as a pathway out of poverty and create equity for Black women. Oxfam's worked on the Gulf Coast for over 15 years. We've done work around corporate engagement, policy, advocacy, education, workforce development, and reentry. But what we truly recognize is the importance of doing this work in Oxfam is, we're supporting local partners. We recognize the importance of doing this work. We have to be locally led, and we have to be led by people who look like the work that we're trying to create touches. And so what we have done, and we recognize, is the importance of building effective Black-led coalitions like the one that Melanie has and like the one we have on the Gulf Coast. We've also recognized the importance of there's power in numbers, and creating space that holds our leaders accountable to a collective plan that speaks to the needs specifically of Black women. And when I talk about Oxfam, I also want to lift up some of our local partners in Mississippi and the Delta in these areas. Some of our partners include Dependable Source, which are training women, Black women, for non-traditional jobs and non-traditional work sectors. We're also working with an organization called New Way Mississippi. We have a pilot reentry workforce development program in which we house, train, and place returning citizens into jobs. And also, last but certainly not least, one of our longstanding partners, I have to give respect and acknowledgement to the great Cassandra Welchin, who is the lead convener of the Black Women's Roundtable in Mississippi. And we support, we listen, we show up. Some of the policies that we're supporting with them include pay equity, workforce development, pregnancy accommodations, paid family leave, and paid sick leave. And also we're supporting and working with One Voice Mississippi, which is the 501c3 partner to the NAACP affiliate of Mississippi, and some of the policies that we're working for with that organization is focused on reentry policy and criminal justice reform. And also, I want to take this moment. I know I talked about 2020 and how important it was, but one of the things I'm really proud of about Oxfam as an organization is that we have committed to supporting racial justice internally, because I think you can do the work externally, but you have to walk and look like you talk on the inside. So one of the things as an organization that we've stepped up and committed to doing is to becoming an anti-racist organization, identifying resources for our partners, and expanding all of our work to be analyzed and looked at through a race and gender lens, which is amazing to me, because I think it's long overdue for us as an organization to not only just be a thought partner, but to truly be a partner on how we operate as an organization. So again, that talks a little bit about our work and what we're doing and our partners on the ground. Again, thank you, Melanie.
And I'm gonna come back to you. So for you to finish, but Congresswoman's got to jump on and jump.
Listen, we are flexible.
And then we'll come right back to you so you can finish your thought, and then we'll go on to our final two sisters to tell us about what they're doing. So it's my honor and pleasure to ask Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from the great state of Texas to come on. Congresswoman Lee, we are just so glad to have you. I think I see her coming on. Have her camera on.
I think I'm coming.
Yes.
Here I am.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so very much for joining us. We know you all over there. Got a lot going on. So we're thankful that you were able to come in. I know you have a hearing coming up. So we're going to turn it over to you. We have 1,100 strong on here from 13 up to 80 something, 90 something, maybe even, we'll find out, but at least 80s on here with us. And so we thank you for you taking some time. And what's in the boxes with us are some of our sister leaders of organizations and who are senior staff inside of a foundation, at least one foundation here with Joy. And so they're here listening, and we're having a conversation with them as the Dr. Cole and Carol joining others who are on here. So we've been doing a combination of hearing from our congressional leaders and hearing from our Black women leaders as well today in this day of public policy action. So turn it over to you.
Well, you know that I love Melanie Campbell, and as well, I love the Black Women's Roundtable. How much more can I love? I love the NCBCP, and I love this summit. And frankly, I also love my fellow congressional sisters. And let me say they are SISTAS. The wonderful speaker that you just had, let me thank her for her courage and her indulgence of me coming on, going from trying to discuss a $185 million project that's being asked of to support, to empower more medical access, not only to my community, but to the nation. And in the middle of VAWA, in the middle of dealing with diversifying the courts of this nation, I could not think of a better place to be than to be at this summit. So let me try to speak with the pointedness of someone who knows that there are busy women, historic women. President Cole, it is a pleasure to be with you. You are a person who, my little bitty self, still stands in your sunlight, and all of the historic women that are on this platform, of which I may not be able to see. Let me take a little bit from BET and call it her story. But as I say this, I could not say that there is not a more significant moment in time for African-American women, people of color, to take their rightful place in the sun. Many of you need to dig up that old play called A Raisin in the Sun. I fully understand it now. Raisin is dark, sometimes crinkly. It is made better, I believe, and sweeter by being in the sun. It is our time to be in the sun. So I'm going to take just a moment to share with you some of the policy issues, but the overall point that I don't want to think that I have missed, and I just don't have time to delve into it. But if I want to throw issues back at the roundtable, let me start first by the need to diversify this nation with Black women. And that means the highest levels of academia, presidents of university, the highest level of corporate life, corporate presidents and board members. We've sort of put that in the corner. The empowerment of our entrepreneurship. Lord have mercy for those Black businesses, women-owned businesses that hung on during the pandemic. Of course, the American Rescue Act is here. I won't speak about it extensively, but dollars are going to begin to again infuse into the community, PPP, EIDL grants. But more importantly, as the corporate life begins to rise again, they need to rise into a new America where we are engaging with them, that private equity needs to be on the agenda to be able to say that you cannot ignore private equity. In a meeting that I was in, 3% of the private equity or less is given to Black women to start up their businesses. Count me in to begin to look at these structures, these fixtures, to begin to move our agenda beyond what we are always asked to do, which is to take the heavy lift of social justice. We will never stop doing that, but we will have to be right front center on the economic engine of this nation. That is a global policy statement as I move into, and to get you to understand the mainstream aspect of the social justice network, because we are there to lift all boats. HR 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals, is alive and well. It is infused into the DNA of this nation. And I need this roundtable of 1,000 to multiply into 1,000,000 by doing your tweeting to say, support HR 40 wherever you are. Is your senator on this bill? Is your congressperson on this bill? For it was filed in 1989, 1 year after the Japanese Americans received their reparations under the Civil Rights Act of 1988. By the way, 300 Japanese American organizations are supporting HR 40. Are you? Do you understand that it is a question of the significant sin of America, singular sin of holding people in bondage for over 200 years, and the question of who built the wealth of this nation? Look in the mirror. The fact that slaves provided the pathway for cotton to be king, developed the transatlantic slave trade that made Europe wealthy, made the United States wealthy, cotton king, and built the Wall Street banks, and let the land itself be the wealthiest aspect of America. That was the Civil War. That was President Lincoln's combined reasoning for not letting the South go and keeping the Union together, and why we are the nation that we are today, which has been over the years and continues to be, in spite of China, the wealthiest nation in the world. And if we continue to build our diversity, it will continue to be the wealthiest nation in the world. So HR 40 is to deal with that wealth gap that was never translated into those 40 acres and a mule, and to look at us scientifically, psychologically, educationally, economically, spiritually, health-wise, to say that HR 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals, is not a dream. It is a legislative reality. It is a bill to develop that commission established by the government that sanctioned slavery, and therefore the government should respond to it. Please understand. That bill is going to be marked up Since 1989, it has never had a markup. The commitment of our leadership in the House, as we have worked, Speaker Pelosi, the majority leader, the majority whip, the chair of the Democratic caucus, all of the leadership, Chairman Schumer, Leader Schumer of the Senate. Can you imagine this kind of leadership saying they support H.R. 40? Now we have to translate. The sponsor of this bill in the Senate is our own favorite Senator Booker. And working that, but who needs to work it? You need to work it so that this reasoning can be established. Let me move quickly to, I'm so proud to have been the lead sponsor of the Violence Against Women Act since 2018 when it expired, blocked, of course, by Neanderthals who did not want us to build a bill that is unbelievable as it relates to you, my sisters. It has a culturally sensitive component that writes in small African-American based, Hispanic based, Asian based, Southeast Asian based, African based cultural aspects that provide the cultural leadership in this bill, where you can get funding to deal with the violence against women. Let me quickly go, because I see my good friend coming up on the screen, but Violence Against Women Act will close the boyfriend loophole, that you'll be protected if the violence was by a boyfriend. You'll be protected if your stalker had a misdemeanor conviction for stalking or sexual assault or some aspect, and they will be blocked from getting a gun. 110 million will be in for rape prevention. We'll intervene with men and boys with culturally sensitive dollars to help them. VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, now responding to the diversity of America. It is now going to the Senate. We need your help. It is HR 1620. It also deals with incarcerated women, that if they have a baby inside the prison, rather than continuing the cycle of snatching that baby, they can nurture that baby inside the federal prison. Move on to George Floyd, Justice and Policing Act. Many sisters were involved in that, including my wonderful colleague, Karen Bass. And as the chair of the Committee on Crime, Homeland Security, Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, I am now shepherding, working with all of the leadership to move this bill to the Senate and for it to be at the president's desk. It is a bill that reimagines how we are treated, and it is a good bill for policing. It is a good bill to say to police, we want them home to their families. We want us and our sons and daughters home to theirs. Pay equity. Yesterday was Equal Pay Day. Wake up, my sisters. In 2021, we are still not paid. And if you look at the economic heap, it is white men, it is white women, it is Black men, it is Black women. That is where you fall in the economic scale of salaries, compensation. And what that does is, why are more Black women poor in retirement, poor in their later years? Because they're not being paid. Pay equity is an issue that we should address. Let me finally come to this question. So maybe there is a question or two, but this issue. Let me explain to you about the border. Let me explain why Black women are crucial in understanding this concept. When I came to the United States Congress, they told me there was no other committee that I was going to be on but Judiciary. You would laugh. That's just what they said. Barbara Jordan was on the Judiciary. I took that as a compliment, but they gave me no option. I've been on the Judiciary Committee for 26 years. I've been the ranking member of the Immigration Committee. I got into immigration, one, because I'm a border state, but because I knew what the emerging nation would look like, all of us. And do Black people need immigration? There are Black immigrants showing up at the border from Africa. The Caribbean are individuals who are unstatused. Liberians on what we call deferred DED. Haitians, temporary protective status, who are languishing in this nation, who need our help. So we should not look at this as we're under siege and it's not us. It is us. It is the human family. I've seen these children. I've held little Roger in my hands, 9 months old, mother dead, brought over by his sister in one of these homes. And under the Trump administration, children separated out of the most cruel policy you could imagine. We who understand slavery snatched away from family roots, family connection, never to be seen again. This is what was happening. So the Biden administration wanted to say that, as he campaigned, that he had a humane system, and they do, we do. And the numbers you're seeing are numbers that have come under the Bush, Clinton, Obama. I was at the border seeing busloads come. So let's calm ourselves down. You're going to see drama because Republicans want to, if you will, let me say the other side wants to besmirch this administration and to take issues away from not voting on the American Rescue Act, not working on immigration issues, not working the way we should on the George Floyd bill or VAWA. And I welcome my friend. VAWA, by the way, was bipartisan. Let me be very clear. Let me thank the bipartisan members. They're dear friends. But border issues are dealing with a law that says that these children must be held in humane facilities through HHS. It has taken HHS a while to stand up enough facilities for these children to go to. Then the legal process of immigration will be in place. They can apply for asylum, and the courts need to be able to decide this child can have asylum or this one cannot, or this adult can have asylum. So what you're seeing is it is before the court proceeding, and the court proceedings will stand up. We will need more courts, but it is a humane way of treating children who have walked. If you can imagine, there are a lot of our grandparents that they walked to school to learn with a book. These folk have walked from Central America, where they've seen decapitated heads, people raped, all the way through. And so we've got to find a way to balance this, but we need equal dignity to all immigrants coming from the diaspora of those of African descendants, heritage, to many others who use that southern border to come into. And we as a Congressional Black Caucus are working hard to be able to do so. So I tried to give you a holistic belief in, as I started out by saying, her story. And to be able to lift up the queens of whose shoulders we stand on. Dr. Cole being one, the late Coretta Scott King being another. All of our brilliant journalists and writers, some have gone home to glory. The likes of Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan going home to glory. To be able to know our mothers and fathers, mothers and fathers, but mothers and grandmothers, great-grandmothers. Do we know their story? Do you know her story? Do you know the history of those lineage that are in you? If you do, it will empower you to take these issues for your rightful place in the sun, a raisin in the sun. Today, I will be presenting to the community here in Houston the Violence Against Women Act. I've asked women to join me in this Women's History Month. Claim your space, claim your legislation, claim your fight. And the best organization in its collaborative spirit is Melanie Campbell's work on collaborative work that has generated the greatest victory that we have got as Black women, the affirmation of the likes of Stacey Abrams and the sisters in Georgia who themselves stood up, Black Votes Matter and others, or Black Lives Matter. And now, of course, who do we have but is the Vice President of the United States, my sister, my friend, Vice President Kamala Harris, now leading the fight and the resolution of this border issue. No crisis issue, because children are not crisis. They are our issue and our concern. Madam President, I want to thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to tell her story. I want to be able to conclude by saying Maya Angelou taught me in my undergraduate college, and she reminded us all, if they show you who they are, that is who they are. She reminded us all that we are the phenomenal women. Are you willing to accept that challenge? Are you ready to go? I need you. Let's go marching into the 21st century in this victory, not just for ourselves, but for all. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you. And I know you have a lot going on down there. I was watching what was happening. You all have had a lot going on down in Texas. So, you know, we say, you know, and I know you are too. I'm a text away. Right? Let us know what we need to be doing. Thank you. And we'll be definitely following up as we're not just doing this for one day. We want to really be a partner with the 117th Congress to really make sure that we can move things forward um, make things better, right? And so I appreciate you. We love you so much. What I'm going to do next, we have Joy Owens. If you could, Joy, just let folks know how they can reach Oxfam America, how they can find out more. And then we're going to move, I think it was, and it doesn't matter which order. We have two of our sister leaders left, and that was Patrice Lawrence, co-director Undocu Black, and Marcia Johnson Blanco with Lawyers Committee. And Carol Joyner, can you do me a favor? Carol, can you come back on?
Yes, I am on. But
okay, can you do me a favor? I have a little something I gotta shift over to deal with. That my schedule's crossing up a bit. Can you finish moderating for me?
Sure.
And we can go, ladies, for about 10 more minutes, so 5 minutes each, 3 to 5 minutes each. And anybody who's watching who has questions, we won't have time for questions because we knew we had a lot that would be going on in the session. Just put it in the chat, and if it's something that you want us to that you wanted to ask one of our leaders today, we can follow up. So just put it in that chat. And our folks can follow up and say who you want, if it's everybody or if it's one of our Black women leaders today. We can try to, we'll make sure, not try, we will get those questions to them. And so, ladies, I want to say thank you and apologize. I have to sign off right now, but thank you for all you're doing. And we got much more to do. And we'll be talking via text too, as well as on these Zoom boxes. And love you so much. So I'm gonna turn it over to Carol, and I'll talk to you all in a little bit. Okay.
Thank you all. So that we have.
Oh, Carol, I'm sorry. Before and when I'm messing up, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, she was able to physically get here, but she has. And so before you close, let's make sure we're able to share her remarks to us. And that's Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from Michigan.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to go quickly, everyone, to Patrice to, talk about the amazing work that Undocu Black is doing around immigration in this moment.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you, Melanie, and thank you, sisters. I'm grateful to be here as always with you and for the home that I've been able to find at Black Women's Roundtable for many years. And I wanted to speak and catch the Congresswoman even before she left, just to say our profound thanks at Undocu Black. So Undocu Black is a network of Black and undocumented women all across the country. I am one of those women, and we are currently celebrating our 5 years of being, and we have been able to grow from 65 members in January 2016 who came together in Miami as Black undocumented people, wanting a space that we could lift up our stories or policies and advocate for ourselves, to over 600 members, and I am proud to be able to do that under my leadership. I serve as the co-director of Undocu Black. I also serve as the leader of a team of all Black undocumented immigrant women, most of whom are undocumented, who serve as the national team carrying out the legs and the hands of this work. I wanted to mention just a little bit about deportation and detention that we are seeing of Black migrants, and how policies need to be reversed so that we are allowing our Black brothers and sisters to settle in the United States and to seek asylum. We have seen that it has deadly consequences when they are not able to assert that right. And so it is really important that we continue to uplift and push out those stories of those who are at the border, including those who are Haitian, Cameroon, and also Mauritanian. And then I want to lift up thanks, because I wasn't at 2020's convening, but I remember being at 2019's convening with you all, sisters, and we came together. I remember on the stage and we talked about Liberians who were on DED, right? You remember, Carol, you remember doing it? And we talked about the fact that we had this bill, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness, that would give green cards. I am happy to report that December 2019, we were able to successfully pass that out of Congress under a Trump administration. That is something I am so happy for. And I just wanted to just offer my thanks and congratulations to you all, sisters, and my thanks to Congresswomen like Sheila Jackson Lee and Yvette Clarke and Karen Bass, who pushed silently, and so it was tucked in to the defense bill, actually, for Liberians. And they still have a little bit more time until December to apply. And I'm very excited about that, but I'm also excited, and now I'm even more sure that we will push for legalization for the rest of us, for the rest of the 11 million. Last week, we saw the House push out HR 6, the Dream and Promise Act, and HR 1603, the Farm Work Modernization Act, which will cause legalization for up to about 5 or 6 million undocumented folks, including myself. We saw pieces get put in there, such as allowing for folks who came to these United States at 18 and under, something so simple that we've been fighting for. Just that age change will allow so many of us to be able to get green cards and one day be able to vote. And you know the power of the vote. And so I've had the pleasure of joining many of you on this panel, many of you in this sisterhood, pushing out the vote. Many of you, Marcia from Lawyers Committee, your work there on Liberian work that we've been able to do in organizing in the Black immigrant community. And I look forward to us being able to access more of that power. And the last thing that I'll just mention is that we are intersectional by nature. We are intersectional by nature as Black women. There is not an issue that does not affect us or impact us. And so COVID-19 and its impact has really wreaked havoc in our community and has wreaked havoc in what it means to access healthcare. And so as different policies continue to be put in place, we continue to ask that each of you, as you go on the Hill today with virtual lobby days, continue to make sure that we are making sure that there's no additional red tape put into place that would keep out someone because of their immigration status. We have unfortunately had people pass away in our community who were not able to access the healthcare that they needed. We have TPS holders. I hold in my heart Miss Jeanette, who's my dear friend's aunt, who had Haitian TPS, who succumbed to cancer last year during the pandemic. And it was a really hard time, and still is a hard time to be unwell. And what we do not want is that immigration status means life or death for people. I believe that we have the resources. I believe that we have the power. And I believe, and I'm very grateful for Black women who make things happen each and every day. As I shared, we have that success. It happened. We already did it. The first time we got legalization in almost 20 years. And though it's for a small number of people, only about 10,000, it still counts. And I believe that we can do it for the remaining 11 million. And I'm so grateful for you sisters for being there with me.
Thank you so much, Patrice. And we are so grateful for you and allowing us to, bask in your glory around, what's going on with migrant workers and activists all over this world. But most importantly, being able to claim a win for Liberian, migrants, or, at a moment when we just knew there was a huge attack on, people traveling to this country and significant deportations under Trump. It's an amazing win, and we are happy to be able to, share that with you. And we will be fighting hard for people all over the globe. I want to turn to Marcia. We talked about the power of the vote, and you know it better than anyone at the Lawyers Committee, moving, the ability to vote and challenging voter suppression all over the country. What's going on with y'all?
Thank you so much, Carol, and I'm really happy to be here with everyone. As you've heard, I co-direct the Voting Rights Project at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And I really lean into being a voting rights lawyer, as you heard Senator Warnock say, the right to vote is preservative of all other rights. And one of the main reasons I'm a voting rights lawyer is because of Melanie Campbell. Melanie made me aware of the opportunity at the Lawyers Committee, encouraged me to apply. And now in 2020, I was working on my 5th presidential election, ensuring the right to vote. So as part of the Voting Rights Project, we pursue voting rights through a racial justice lens to make sure that African Americans and all racial and ethnic minorities have access to the right to vote. We use lawyers, organizers, social scientists, and a team of administrative staff using litigation, programs, and advocacy to ensure the right to vote. And 2020 kept us incredibly busy. One of our signature programs, as you may know, is Election Protection, which is the nation's largest nonpartisan voter protection coalition, with the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation is a founding member of, and many members of the Black Women's Roundtable provide leadership in the states, including in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee. And African Americans have always been at the forefront of the struggle for the right to vote. And African American women have been on the front lines of that struggle. And we know more so than in 2020. We worked really closely with our state partners to provide education, resources, and assistance through our 866 Our Vote hotline to assist voters on the ground. And, we fought to ensure voter registration opportunities, access to vote by mail, early voting opportunities, including supporting souls to the polls, ensuring there were needed resources at polling places. And then when it was necessary, we went to court. And in 2020, we filed over 50 lawsuits to ensure access to the ballot. And we saw that success of those efforts when we had more than 101 million people able to vote before Election Day. And now we're seeing the backlash. And the reason I went through all of those efforts we made to ensure the right to the vote is because each and every one of those efforts are now under attack. There are about 253 suppressive bills in 43 states that would get rid of no excuse absentee voting, provide limitations on early voting, including specifically targeting souls to the polls, making it harder to register to vote, and taking away the authority of the Secretary of State and giving it to legislatures, state legislatures who could determine whether elections get certified, and also putting in place really harsh criminal penalties and giving authority to go after people on voter fraud allegations. And this has always been consistent with the history that we're facing, where we do everything we can to make sure that we have access to a full voice in our community, in our country, and we always face the backlash. And just because we're up to the task doesn't mean we should have to do all of this work and fight to vote. But 2 things that I just want to make sure that I bring to your attention is that there's the For the People's Act, which passed the House, which is a comprehensive democracy bill that would ensure that all of the things that these suppressive bills are trying to do will not be able, they would not be able to do under federal law. And we So it passed the House. It's now before the Senate. I encourage you all to get in touch with your senators and make sure that they're will pass the For the People's Act, particularly in light of this backlash we're seeing from the states. I also want to lift up that soon the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act will be introduced, and that bill is to support the full fix to the Voting Rights Act. As you may know, in 2013, the Supreme Court really weakened the Voting Rights Act, which is the transformative legislation that really made American democracy a reality. And so now we have a chance to provide a fix to the bill to make sure that it can meet its potential. So I really encourage you to get in touch with your members of Congress and make sure that they're supporting and voting for HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Two other things I just want to mention really quickly is that in addition to voting rights and other policy issues and litigation that we do at the Lawyers Committee, we also have the James Byrd Center to Stop Hate. And in January 6th, we saw starkly how white supremacy is emboldened in this country. And in all of our communities, we're facing hate crimes against minorities. And at the Byrd Center, we also have a hotline, which is 844-9-NO-HATE, that people can call. We provide training, resources to communities who are encountering hate crimes or have questions about how they can ensure that their communities are protected when confronting hate crimes. So we are now in such a crucial time in our country where our democracy is under attack in a very significant way. There are all these periods in history when democracy is under attack, and we're living in one right now. So I just encourage you all to make sure that you engage your members of Congress on these issues and to ensure that the federal government passes really robust voting legislation to push back against this backlash we're seeing in the states to try to really restrict opportunity to vote. And lastly, redistricting is coming up. Please get involved in redistricting, because through this process, we can ensure that we're able to elect our candidates of choice. And the same backlash we're seeing with voting, we're going to see opportunities to restrict our engagement in the redistricting process, and we can't allow that to happen. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you so much, Marcia. And everyone who stayed on the call. Barbara, did Patrice leave?
No, she's
Dr.
here.
Dr. Cole, Patrice, if you're still there, thanks so much for staying on. I see the production crew is on, but I think our time is up. It was really great to see all of you and listen to your work. I long for the time where we could report our work and then have a conversation with each other about how we can knit these really important issues together, because they're all connected. But I guess we'll sign off here and see each other in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Love you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ladies, and thank you for being a part of our panel. We will now take a 5-minute break as we prepare for our next session. Again, we will take a 5-minute break and we will rejoin as we will prepare to go through the BWR virtual media briefing, release of the 8th annual BWR report, Black Women in the United States and Key States 2021, Rebuilding Hope, Justice, Equity, and Equality in the Midst of a Pandemic and New Political, Racial, and Social Justice Era. We'll be with you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
I'm ready whenever you all are ready.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for rejoining us as we're now in our next segment, the release of the 8th Annual BWR Report, Black Women in the United States and Key States 2021, Rebuilding Hope, Justice, Equity, and Equality in the midst of a pandemic and new political, racial, and social justice era. It is now my pleasure and honor to now reintroduce to us our President and CEO, Melanie L. Campbell.
Thank you. Hello, 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 our Black Women's Roundtable sisters out there. and some of our brothers out there. Thank you for tuning back in for the next segment of day 2 of our 10th annual Black Women's Roundtable Summit. I want to give a special shout out, and I don't think I've had a chance to do that, to all of our staff and team and production team who are making this happen. And hoping and it definitely feels magical trying to figure out how to do this. And you couldn't do it. We could not do it without all of you. And I will further acknowledge you a little later on. But we've got a day and a half, and I found it not robbery to stop and say thank you for all you are doing behind the scenes. So it is my honor and privilege and pleasure to be able to present to this audience and others the release of our 8th annual Black Women's Roundtable Report, Black Women in the U.S. and Key States 2021. Our focus and theme for this year's report is rebuilding hope, justice, equity, and equality in the midst of a pandemic and new political, racial, and social justice era. I want to thank our co-editors for this year's report, Dr. Elsie Scott, who is the co-editor this year of the report. She is a board member, secretary of the board of the National Coalition. But what she does all day, every day, is she's the founding director of the Ronald W. Walters Leadership and Public Policy Center at Howard University. And of course, our co-editor who has carried this ball all the way, and then her and Dr. Elsie decided together we're going to connect the two of these powerful women. She's been our editor-in-chief for the last 7 years, and then now she has a partner, and that's Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, who is the president and CEO of Insight Unlimited, as well as Exceptional Women's Leadership Institute that she runs, as well as she's got some really dynamic creative things going on in the communication space, media space, and we'll be hosting a special town hall that we're partnering with her on tomorrow evening. So stay tuned to hear more about that. And so at this time, we want to unveil the report cover. Did we do that? Thank you. And so this is the cover of our report for this year. And I'm telling you, it's awesome sisters who are in this report that was pulled together. And so as you can see, the title and the message of no justice, no peace, we truly believe really tells us where we are. Where we have been. This report is done every year. And so as we know, all that has happened from the pandemic to George Floyd's, the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and so many other names that we could call, how important it is that we take this time in this moment to reflect on these issues. And I will not take away from what you hear from our co-editors who will go deep into the meat of what's happening. But we felt this image hopefully conveys just where we still are in this country. And there is no justice and without peace, and there is no peace without justice. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our senior policy advisor, Jocelyn Tate, who will moderate this panel with our co-editors. Jocelyn, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Melanie. And thank you, ladies, everyone who's joining us today for the release of our report. When you are able to dive into it, it is on our website, blackwomensroundtable.org. When you dive into it, I'm sure that you will find a lot of information about the things that are important to Black women. A lot of powerful Black women have contributed to this report, and it is a wealth of information about Black women and what we feel is important to us. Let me introduce, again, Melanie has introduced, I want to turn it over now to our co-editors, Avis Jones DeWeaver and Elsie Scott, to give you just give you an overview of what is in the report. So Avis will start with you and then we'll move to Elsie. Avis?
Good afternoon, ladies. Wonderful to be here. So excited to be a part of this release. We are super excited to be able to share with you our 8th annual report. Here, we've covered everything from how Black women have fared in the economy, how Black women have been impacted by the COVID crisis, how Black women have contributed to saving this democracy. So let's go ahead and take credit for that, because we should, and so much more. And so I will just begin by giving you a few sort of highlights from some of the sections in this report, and then I will just go ahead and hand the ball over to Dr. Scott. Well, she also will highlight other sections of the report as well. Some key findings, I guess is the best way to say that, from the report. All right. Now, as it relates to key findings, I first want to start off by just acknowledging that Black women have been on the front lines of the pandemic, and we have been especially hard hit as a result of the pandemic economy. So in essence, what we uncover in this report is that Black women have disproportionately put their health at risk during the COVID-19 crisis. We are fully 45% of private sector workers who are employed in industries like healthcare, retail, accommodation, food service, in other words, industries that needed to be there and have a lot of interaction with the public. That obviously puts our health disproportionately at risk under a pandemic reality, right? One survey even found that 51% of employed Black women described working on the front lines of the pandemic as were actually essential workers, as compared to only 38% of white women. But when we look at how we fared in the economy overall, when we look at the impact of the COVID economy to working women and others, we do find that even though Black women continue to be the most likely woman to work in America, our labor force participation rate, even in the COVID economy, still exceeds all other women's labor force participation rate. We have also been disproportionately hurt by the COVID economy. Right now, we know that Black women have borne the bulk of the job losses that women have experienced in this, what people are calling the she session, right? Black women are fully 9%, have a 9% unemployment rate at this point, as compared to a 5% unemployment rate for white women, 6% for Asian, and 8.5% for Latinos. So this means that we have been on the front lines. We are still on the front lines. We are still committed to working to taking care of ourselves and our families, but we are still also disproportionately likely to be hurt by the job losses that this nation has suffered as a result of this economy. We know too that Black women are likely to hold low wage jobs still. And so we are working still as when we can, but we're not getting paid what we should. In fact, 73% of African Americans have indicated that we don't even have enough money to cover 3 months of expenses if we needed to, compared to 47% of whites who say the same. So when you find ourselves in this type of economy where people sometimes have experienced very long bouts of unemployment, that means that our families are particularly likely to be in very precarious economic positions. Even in this situation too, I think it's important to highlight that, you know, we talk a lot about housing, for example, under this new reality in terms of the pandemic. And we have a piece in the actual report that talks about how even when it comes to affordable housing, that Black women and families are largely shut out. What actually occurs is that many times when you have more affordable houses under $100,000 that are available, they are typically purchased by investors at fully cash paid all up front. And for a variety of different reasons in terms of our banking industry that show up as, like, quite frankly, institutionalized racism, I would argue, it's less likely for African Americans to be able to finance such housing. And therefore, we are more likely to show up as renters in these spaces and stay stuck in that position. Another key point that was raised a couple of times in this report that I think is very important to recognize is the importance of having a care infrastructure in this nation. When you look at what we have learned as part of this new COVID reality, it really has brought to bear how important it is that we have access to paid family and sick leave, that we have comprehensive child care and elder care services. And we are really finding that a lot of our caregivers who are out here doing the work are still severely underpaid and also are still disproportionately Black women. So those are some issues that were brought up there. Another issue that I thought was particularly interesting that was brought up in the report is the degree to which telehealth and artificial intelligence also shows up as a biased mechanism to receive health care in this nation. Under the pandemic, we all know that we are more likely now to use telehealth. We're more likely now to use more AI services when accessing health care. And what was uncovered in this report suggests that algorithms are less likely to refer Black people with equal symptoms as whites to improved services or access to improved medical care services. And so they are more likely not to be able to be pushed through to the healthcare that they need, even by artificial intelligence programming. And so this is particularly disturbing because we know about the reality of the years of research that suggests that there is a similar type of bias in the healthcare system when you're face-to-face working with the doctor. We see that those biases literally have been programmed into the system in terms of artificial intelligence services related to healthcare. And lastly, I would say that we had a very, very interesting and moving section in this report that had to do with how Black women have been impacted by COVID personally. What has it been like to have to navigate this new reality? And I would definitely suggest that you take a read at those essays. One that really stands out to me was really understanding how to navigate this when you are pregnant, right? So we had a contributor, Michelle Dubois, who told her story about being pregnant during this time and how that made her make the decision to actually have her baby at home in what she felt was a more safe environment. First Lady Forever, Cora Masters-Berry, shares her story about how she is working to make sure that people have access to vaccines and understand that this is a very important thing that you need to do to protect your health. And so these are just a few little highlights that I wanted to share with you in the report. There is many, many more. We're very excited to share this with you. And at this point, I'm going to ask Dr. Scott to share some of her most resonant findings that she found in the report as well.
Good afternoon. Introduction.
Dr. Scott, we're having a little issue with your audio. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe our technical people can assist us and give some support.
Sure. Can you mute? Maybe mute your speaker on your computer. Do you have two devices? Are you running your phone and your computer?
No, I'm on two computers.
Okay. Is that any better?
It's still
a little bit. Do you have your phone near your computer?
Yes, I do. See if I put my How is that?
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Okay, should I unmute now?
You're unmuted already.
Thank you. I think you're ready to go now, Elsie.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to, I'm still getting a feedback.
Okay.
I'll try.
We can hear you well. We can hear you well.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Melanie and thank Avis for this report. It's my first time serving as a co-editor along with Avis. And now I really see how she has a very difficult time putting this whole report together. But it has been my pleasure to be a part of it. Avis has covered a lot of the topics, but I want to cover a few others of what we found during this report. That women are full of hope. You know, part of our theme here was based on hope. And so we found that women were especially hopeful after the election. And we had great writings by the people from Georgia. And I would just like to thank all the people who contributed to this report, all the writers. The Georgia people told us how they had accomplished what they did in Georgia. That it was a combination of coalition building, hard work, strategic targeting, leveraging all their resources, grassroots organizing, rigorous get out the vote, and relentless focus on the election goals. And this is how they won big in Georgia. And we continue to applaud them. That we had a record turnout in this election year, and this was driven mostly by Black women. And we were able to elect the first African-American vice president, who also is the first woman, the first African-American woman, and the first Asian-American woman vice president. And now that this ticket has won, now Black women are focused on what do we want from this administration. And there are a number of things that have been pointed out beyond having a woman on the Supreme Court, but we're also looking for a lot of policy changes as well as appointments, which we've seen a number of new appointments. And Black women are now that they are in elected positions, they are now using their power to bring about changes. And one of the examples that was used in the report was our local county executive from Prince George's County, Angela Alsobrook, who you will hear from either later today or tomorrow. Also, there was a focus on criminal justice. As you know, that all of the surveys we've done, we found that Black women are very much concerned about criminal justice issues. And one of the big issues is mass incarceration. And we often think of mass incarceration as it relates to men. But what we found is that there are more and more Black women and girls that are being warehoused like Black men. And one of our writers brought it to our attention is that we shouldn't just focus on prison. We should also focus on getting rid of probation and parole systems that are keeping women incarcerated after they have been released from prison. There's also a concern about stopping the prison pipeline, which traditionally has been a Black male concern, but now there are more and more Black girls that are getting caught up in that prison, the school to prison pipeline. That many women are hopeful because of Joe Biden's position on stopping violence. He was one of the sponsors of the Stop the Violence Against Women Act back in the Senate in the 1990s. And so we are expecting strong support from his administration to address violence against women. In the area of education, Black women feel that Biden administration is on the right track right now with the American Rescue Plan, which is expected to increase the amount of Pell Grants and increase support for HBCUs. Also, we are saying that we need to, in addition to looking at colleges and finding funding for colleges, we also need to look at funding for certificate programs, because every Black woman is not going to go to college, and we want them to be able to have productive careers. And so there are some certificate programs that they have to be enrolled in, but those are costly also. So we're looking for money in order to support those programs. And some corporations are now looking at how they can support some of those. So we'll be looking to those corporations to expand programs and opportunities for young people who are not interested in going to traditional colleges. Another thing we looked at was broadband access, especially as it relates to education, is that once we went into the pandemic mode and schools closed, is that many children didn't have access to an education because they didn't have the resources at home, the technology, in order to attend their classes. And so there's a need to expand opportunities as it relates to broadband and poor people in this country, and especially poor people living in rural areas. And then we close, I guess I want to close with talking about democracy being an attack, because this is a big concern of Black women, especially after January 6th, when we saw the assault on the US Capitol building. And so in addition to fighting for voting rights and trying to keep some of these state legislatures from taking away voting rights from people in our various states, we are also looking at how do we expand voting rights at the national level, as well as put measures in place in order to protect the democracy in the United States. That there's been a rise in hate crimes and white supremacy groups, and we need to have legislation in place in order to deal with these insurrections, with these hate incidents that are popping up, not just against Black people, but against other minority people. We are still excited about the election of Kamala Harris as the Vice President of the United States, and we'll be looking for ways to continue to support her as she works with implementing the Biden agenda. And so we encouraging more women to run for public office up and down the ticket, because we feel like a lot of people have been motivated to run for office based on seeing her success and seeing the success in some other places. So we expect a lot of Black women to run for office in 2022. And we ask everybody to become a part of these campaigns, not just going out and knocking on doors, but we also ask you to be involved in all aspects of organizing and getting out to vote, as well as supporting campaigns. So we are very excited about this report and look forward to any questions we might have.
Thank you so much, Elsie. And we do have a few questions in the chat. The first one we have is they're saying that they did not see anything about the Equal Rights Amendment in the report. And I will refer you to the addendum in the report, where we do have our BWR, our Black Women's Roundtable policy priorities. And if you look at that addendum, the appendix in the report, you will see our public policy priority agenda. In that, you will see that we do address the Equal Rights Act as one of our public policy priorities. In addition to the Equal Rights Amendment, in addition to that, another one of our policy priorities is the Paycheck Fairness Act and the Raise the Wage Act. So if you are looking at our policy, at our BWR report, which is at blackwomensroundtable.org, You will see, in addition to the essays that are included, where these amazing women have addressed issues. They are on the pulse of Black women in America, and they've raised issues that are important to Black women in America. Look at the appendix, and that's where you will see our full policy agenda, where we have addressed the Equal Rights Amendment. Let's see if we have any other questions in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat directly addressing the report. So let me just ask a question of you, Elsie and Avis, about the report. When you were reviewing the report or looking through the report, could you share with us any particular issues that resonated with you personally that stood out that you could share with our attendees? And I'll start with you, Avis.
Sure. So I would just say just a particular research interest of mine and specialty of mine over the years have been the intersection of race, gender, and the economy. And so the specific contributions that delve deeply into that, I think, are especially important and resonated with me quite well. We know that Black women work. Black women have always worked. We didn't need a women's movement to get us to work in this country. This work was built on our labor. But we have never been paid fairly. And so what I thought was particularly interesting under the new COVID reality is that work has now become a life-threatening activity, right? If you are in certain jobs, you are literally risking your life in this pandemic. That dovetails with what we know around how Black people are more likely to not only become a victim of COVID, but also more likely to die of COVID, right? So it's a very precarious moment for Black women. However, what I found very interesting in reading the submissions is that in spite of that danger, Black women are still doing what we need to do to support our families. And so we're still out there at much higher labor force participation rates than other women in America. We still are, even though our unemployment rate is high, that statistic is actually a measure of how many people are looking for work and can't find it, right? And so the reason, the fact that we have a high unemployment rate is showing me that that's not by choice, right? Those women are still trying to go out there and work. And so, I think that we need to just highlight the story of the importance of Black women's labor, and also highlight the story of how even in this very precarious moment, we are still living up to that responsibility while taking care of our children, while taking care of our elders, while trying to navigate homeschooling situations for our kids who are now virtual learning. So we are literally doing it all under the most precarious circumstances economically, but also under one of the most dangerous circumstances physically as well.
Thank you so much. And Elsie, any particular things that stood out to you personally in the report?
That stood out to me personally, I would say would be the whole excitement around the election. That the report was based on hope. And in a lot of the writings that I read, is that women were happy. They were happy about the outcome of the election. They were happy to come from under this veil of uncertainty that had revolved around the election and what would happen to our democracy. So that was, I guess, I was trying to highlight what was exciting to me. And that's what I found that was exciting, is that so many women were saying that, okay, we can do this. We did it in 2020. Let's do it again in 2022.
Thank you so much, Elsie. I have another question in the chat. The question is in conjunction with the issue of raising, talking about the over-incarceration of Black women, especially young Black women. Is there anything in the report that touches on the issue of reimagining police departments in states?
We didn't have any no, we didn't have an essays about the police or over policing and defunding the police. I guess maybe I was supposed to write that and didn't get around to writing it. So
Well, I will say this: if you look in the appendix again at the Black women, and that's to the person that is asking the question. If you look again at the appendix in the Black Women's Roundtable, at our Black Women's Roundtable public policy agenda, you will see in there that we do address one of the things that we do address is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So that is one of our top policy priority agendas. So when you go to the appendix and look at the back and you see our public policy priorities, you will see that there.
And if I could just add, for the person who asked previously about the ERA, if you were to look in section 4 of the report, we have a wonderful submission there by Dr. Janetta Cole, as well as Janice Mathis, both of the National Council of Negro Women, who contributed a piece specifically on the ERA and what that means for Black women.
Thank you, Avis. Let's see. We have another question here. What was said about water justice affordability and environmental issues in the report? Well, I will just mention really quickly, we do, again, I'll refer you to the appendix where you can see the Black Women's Roundtable Public Policy Agenda, where we do have an issue. One of our priority issues is the environment. So if you can check and just flip back to the appendix, you will see that among our policy agenda items. Elsie and Avis, do you have anything else to add about environmental issues in the report?
yes, there's an essay on environmental justice that was written by Felicia Davis. And so I would refer people to that. And Felicia has been one of the people that's been most actively involved in this whole area of climate change and environmental justice. And she sees it as merging with other justice issues. And so I think that people will be excited as we look at how do we make environmental justice a greater topic, I guess, as we move forward, Black women using our power.
Okay, let's see, do we have any other questions? We don't have any other questions at this time, but I would like to just refer people also, if there is an essay that you may not see addressed in the report, please, that issue may probably be addressed in our public policy agenda, which is in the back of the report in the appendix. And just to highlight a few of the issues that are on that public policy agenda, technology and online privacy. That is one of our issues, because there is, believe it or not, when you do a Google search and these different search engines, they do look, and based on your IP address and your search history, they can determine whether you're a female, whether you're a Black female, whether you're a white male, and your search results that you get back can differ depending on who you are and based on those algorithms, what they've decided you need to see. So one of our policy priorities is to get legislation that can put an end to that bias in online, that online discriminatory bias. Because what happens is, if the algorithms and the things that you search for determine that you are a Black woman, believe it or not, there have been studies shown that when you do a search for jobs online, you will your search results will come back with lower paying jobs than those of a white man that searches for the same thing. Also, if it's determined that you are a Black person or a person of color and you search for housing loans, the loans with higher interest rates, if the algorithms have determined based on your previous search results that you are a Black woman or a person of color, the interest rates that will come and you're looking for a housing loan, your search results will come back with higher interest rate loans than those of a white person. So those are some of our top policy priorities that you will see in the back in the addendum. So I did want to address those. Let's see if we have any other questions in the chat. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Ladies, Avis or Elsie, any other things that you would like to add about the report?
Well, I just kind of want to quickly say thanks again to all the contributors. I just want to add my thank you to this. This is always a labor of love every year. And it's just such a wonderful honor to have all the brilliance that were bestowed our way in terms of the contributions to the report. We obviously did not have time to go through and tell you about each and every submission. So we do really encourage you to go download the report, read it from the beginning to the end. You're going to get some great information and some great inspiration from reading those contributions. And as always, thank you to Melanie Campbell for her incredible leadership in this, our 8th annual report.
And someone again is asking, where can they find the report? You go to blackwomensroundtable.org. Black Women's Roundtable, no spaces, no underscores, blackwomensroundtable.org. The report is there. We encourage you to look at it, dig through it, find information. We see someone in the chat that says, I'm looking forward to digging into the report. And we look forward to you to dig into the report. So let's see, do we have any other questions here in the chat? I don't see any other questions. Elsie, any last words? We have a few more minutes. Elsie, any last words that you want to add?
Well, I again want to thank Melanie for having this report produced every year. And I want to thank the team, because there was really a team at NCBCP to help us put this together. Jocelyn and all the other staff members, as well as it was a pleasure working with Avis, and I have a new appreciation for all the work that she puts into getting this report out. And it was a pleasure for me to be a part of it. And I want to apologize to some of the writers who felt like maybe I was too harsh with my criticism. And I want to apologize to anybody whose essay did not make it into the report this year. We want to encourage you to continue to be a part of BWR and to write next year. Thank you very much.
And just let me say too, in pulling together this report, we do reach out to women leaders in all areas and sectors that are keeping their fingers on the pulse of what's going on and things that are issues that are important to Black women. So though many of you on the call in this space right now with us and joining us for the Black Women's Roundtable, do know that this report is based on women who are dealing with these issues, these important issues, are experts in these issues. So please, as one of our people in the chat said, Tiffany, she's looking forward to digging in. So I hope that everyone will dig into this report too. I also see a question in the chat. How do we download the report? Again, go to blackwomensroundtable.org. There should be a spot there for you to download and we can possibly get back with you if there is not a download function for you right now, but I'm sure that there will be shortly. So with that, this concludes our session. If I see no more questions, so I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you and Avis and Elsie for all of your hard work putting this report together. I want to thank everyone that's joining us here today, all of our attendees at the Black Women's Roundtable Summit. I want to thank Melanie Campbell for her leadership and seeing that the importance of having this report and it has been continuing to go with her leadership for 8 years. And we're looking forward to 8 years and beyond to publish this report. This is a very significant report and it brings Black women's voices to the fore so that we can be heard on the issues that are important to us. So with that, I will say thank everyone for joining.
I'm coming, Jocelyn.
Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you, Melanie. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jocelyn, for your wonderful moderation. I don't know why I'm getting an echo. Oh, I know why. Elsie, I'm doing what you did. My phone is on. Technology is wonderful. Let me turn that phone off. Okay, there with the echo. So thank you, Jocelyn, for moderating and being a part of the editing team. And we had some brothers, and Joshua Gray and Angelo Greco, and our graphics company, Trill. I'm messing up there. Trill Communications. If I messed that up, forgive me. Who helped to lay it out. And you're right, Avis. It's a labor of love, and I missed those late nights we have to do, but I know that was you and Elsie this time, and I appreciate both of you all. We really do. We appreciate you for your humble brilliance, and I don't say that lightly. And when it comes to, I love to put a Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver and Dr. Elsie Scott, who are both powerhouses. And I just think it's just like was amazing that you all were able to come together. So I want to keep this going, if y'all don't mind, and see if we can just lay this out over the course of the year. And all of the contributors, we will be highlighting you in different ways in between the breaks over the next few days. So we'll be highlighting the different women and just putting people up. And one of the things that we attempted Avis to do last year, and we're going to see if we can do it, especially since we're in the boxes, right? Anyway, and that was to try to have a few conversations with each of the categories of women, so that ladies who are the contributors look to hear back from us and kind of organize that so that we can go deeper in the conversation about what you wrote. And so we thank you again for that. And so ladies, this is the conclusion of day 2 for the whole group. But we have the launch of our girls track, which starts tonight. And this is strictly for 13 to 17. If you are not in that age category, you cannot join. This is their sacred space. It's being facilitated by our sister, Black Women's Roundtable sister leader, Michelle, Indie Mom of Comedy, along with our own Acacia Newsom, who's our program assistant with Black Women's Roundtable, and really Black You Vote too, but she's now been assigned primarily with Black Women's Roundtable. They will be facilitating the girls track. Opens tonight, with their virtual mixer, with a game night and virtual party from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock this evening. So if, and I know you would have received that information if you have been registered to attend. And we will start early tomorrow. Tomorrow, it's all about Community Action Day. And we will start early. Tomorrow, we got a little treat for you. For those who don't mind rising early, we will start the day off with a morning power up virtual group exercise from 8 to 8:30 a.m. So you can come in and chime in and come together so we can make sure that we continue to work on that health as part of our whole selves. So that will be started, and our sister Tanya Tyson has been organizing that. Don't forget, we have a few vendors. We normally would have a vendor marketplace. And we've found that this year we wanted to do the best we could with sisters who wanted to participate in our Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Mini Expo and Black Women Entrepreneurs Virtual Marketplace. You can go there anytime. We have times on your schedule, but it's open anytime to go and visit and see the kinds of things that you can support Black women entrepreneurs. And then our morning is going to be really feel what we're calling our Rebuild Hope, Justice, Equity, and Equality Day, Quality Power Tables. And the subjects, and this will be powered by Essence magazine tomorrow. And so we'll have a treat. We will be hearing from Congresswoman Lucy Macbeth from the state of Georgia. And then we'll have 3 power table roundtables. One where we'll focus on overcoming racial access barriers and myths to surviving COVID-19 pandemic that starts at 9 o'clock. And then we'll have, excuse me, ladies, I'm losing my paper. Apologize for that. Then the Power Table 2 is from 10 to 11:10, and it focuses on eradicating systemic racism and hate crimes and white nationalism. Protecting voting rights is key to saving our democracy from peril. And our third panel of the morning is Justice Delayed is Justice Denied. The time is now for criminal justice and policing reform. And then we have an awesome lunch, and you can follow the rest of the schedule based on that. But we will close out today from hearing from Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from the awesome state of Michigan to close us out. And thank you again for joining the Black Women's Power Table Day 2. So we'll close out with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who's also a co-chair of the Black Women, no, I'm so sorry, no, she's not. She also is co-chair of the Democratic Caucus, Women's Caucus, as well as other leadership roles. I think second vice president of the Congressional Black Caucus. So Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. And thank you all. See you a little later.
Honored to speak at the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable Summit on rebuilding hope, justice, equality, and equity. I would like to acknowledge two Michiganders, Tamika Ramsey and Stephanie Moore, two fearless leaders of the Michigan Black Women's Roundtable. The foundation you both continue to build for Black women and Black people have not gone unnoticed. I currently serve as the second vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus and co-chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus. We know that Black Americans are facing two crises during this pandemic. There is the health one and the economic one, while also fighting racial injustice. Black Americans are disproportionately affected by the coronavirus, and it's Black women who are bearing the brunt of this crisis. 1 in 3 Black women are frontline workers, which increases their exposure to the virus. Despite keeping our communities afloat during an unprecedented pandemic, many are working low-wage jobs, and also the risk increased exposure to COVID-19. While the gender pay gap continues to be a barrier to our economic mobility and security. I've been fighting in Congress to bring back targeted relief to the Black community and other communities of color, because we must address these health and economic disparities. The American Rescue Plan, recently signed by our president, President Biden, includes provisions to help women, African Americans, and communities of color. With the child tax credit, child care assistance, and support for minority-owned businesses, we are delivering promises made, promises kept. Help is on the way. We are delivering the relief to those who have been hit the hardest. I'm working in Congress to pass legislation to better support Black women and other communities of colors in the long run. Paycheck Fairness Act, Black Maternal Mortality Health Act, and the Raise the Wage Act. We can root out systematic racism and inequality while building back better with Black women, not just in mind, but front and center. When Black women succeed, America succeeds. I am so mindful during Black History Month and during Women's History Month, the struggles that we have. And we wake up in the morning having done nothing wrong. And when we open that door to go out into the world, we are confronting racism, injustice, gender discrimination, and all of those things. But we as Black women will prevail. We are strong. We come from a strong crop of women who have taught us, carried us, prayed for us, nurtured us, shed tears for us, to open doors and break ceilings. I'm so proud to be with you today to tell you that help is on the way, that you have not been forgotten, that you have a sister that's working in the halls of Congress, built by slaves, the little Black girl from Detroit, that will never forget her responsibility to my sisters. God bless you. Do great things and stay safe.
Thank you very much for attending the 10th Annual Black Women's Roundtable Women of Power Virtual Summit. This now concludes our portion for today. May you all have a safe and enjoyable day. Take care, everyone.